It's all good. It's all good. Okay, so tonight I was going to try and do my story from my heart. It is still from my heart, of course, but I got a bit lost. So I've written out my story and I'm going to read through it. And I just hope tonight that I can bring some hope and encouragement to you in the room tonight. So here we go. So tonight I would like to share my journey, my story. When Kerry asked me if I would like to share my story, I hesitated for a while because I knew that it would be challenging and raw, and also I knew that I would have to deal with one of my biggest fears, and that is fear. So for me to get up here tonight is quite remarkable. But it wasn't too long before I said yes, because this is what our journey is all about. It's about helping others get through their journey, which in the end helps you even more with your own journey. The last few weeks have actually been quite painful for me, as it has stirred up a lot of emotions with my story. But one thing I realised, it doesn't matter how long our journey has been, we are all a work in progress. And there is no time limit on when we think that we shouldn't be going through or we should be going through these emotions. The main purpose is that we are moving forwards and not backwards. So no matter what life throws at you, there is always hope. My story involves grief, trauma, self-doubt, and PTSD, and of course fear. And with those words comes a lot of other things and triggers that sometimes makes you into a person you don't really want to be, and also a person who you sometimes don't even recognise. So when you are labelled with a condition as anxiety, fear, PTSD, it doesn't matter how long you have had it, it always just seems to keep on rearing its head in your life in so many different areas, and sometimes you really don't realise the effect that it is having on your life and those around you. And I think the first thing we tend to do is beat ourselves up. There are so many whys. Why am I like this? Why am I feeling like this? And why am I acting like this? It has taken me a long time to accept why I do the things I do and why I feel like I do. But the best thing is now I don't beat myself up about my emotions and my triggers. I recognise them, and then I give myself the grace and the space to be able to deal with them. Some days they are there constantly and it's hard, but it's all about knowing how to find the things that helps us through and to love myself through it. For me, it was hidden away for a very long time through a lot of pain and trauma that I didn't want to deal with. Sometimes our hurts and fears are so hard to deal with, we just push them aside and continue to deal with life the best way we can and wonder why then we crumble. It's not until we become transparent and admit to ourselves that not being okay is okay. And this lesson has taken me a long time to learn, and I'm still learning. Learning to love me and accept how I operate, and to be kind to myself and not to be self-judging. Something that I have done so much in my life, and it brings so much hurt in so many areas of our lives. With self-judgment, also many other things creep into our lives and leaves you with feeling of despair, worthlessness, and just not feeling like you fit in and you're normal. So when we accept what life has dealt us, and we then see the big picture on how we operate and face it, which involves a lot of courage, and this can be very raw and hard, but brings us so much freedom and healing in the long run, because we no longer blame ourselves, we release ourselves, and so much healing and growth can come from this. and then we can truly love ourselves, and I think that's the key. So to begin my journey of my life, I want to take you back to my early childhood, where I started school at the age of 4, way too young, and struggled all through my schooling years, and was always told that I was dumb, stupid, things that are so damaging. Doesn't seem like at the age of 4 that could do much damage, but it did, and I did believe this is where my first self-doubt was born in me. I finished school at year 10, and I was truly glad to see the back of school, as I never felt like I had achieved and really didn't have a lot of belief in myself. I was happy, but underneath you could say there was quite a lot of issues going on. But I remained positive and got through. I was then able to get myself into a career to become a nurse. So at the age of 14, I started my cadet nursing training. Being so young, at 14, it was terrifying to have to answer to matrons who back in those days were very strict. But I loved working with people, and I just remember having happy memories from being able to help so many people in the short time that I was there. So it was only 3 months into that job when my whole world fell apart. It was my 15th birthday. My mum and my 2 sisters had decided that we would have a celebration. We had a party on the night before my birthday, and then decided that the next day we would go to Rainbow Beach for the day to celebrate. On the way home, my world crumbled and my world nearly ended. And it's only the grace of God that I'm standing here today to be given a second chance of life, to tell you this story, one that I'm truly so grateful for every day. It's still hard to this day to relive, but I do this in hoping that I can help someone else through a traumatic event that they may have experienced also. So on the afternoon of the 12th of March 1977, the car that I was travelling in with my beautiful mum, my younger sister and my older sister was hit and run over by a truck carrying 40 tonnes of steel pipes. At the wheel of my car was a driver that was influenced by alcohol. Life was never to be the same again for me. There has never been a day in my life that has had so much sadness, trauma, shock, fear, and not thinking I could ever go on with my life. My beautiful mum, Grace, whom I loved and cared for so much, was taken from me instantly that day. My younger sister became a quadriplegic with her C3, 4 and 5 vertebrae in her neck crushed. My other sister had so much head trauma that she no longer knew who we were, and myself had a fracture to my neck plus many other horrific injuries. As you could imagine, at the age of 15 and on my birthday, it was one of the most traumatised, shock, disbelief, numb feeling that I still to this day have never experienced. It was a long journey recovering mentally, physically, emotionally, and still to this day there are often many tears. Not only for my own journey, but having to watch my younger sister try and survive her horrific injuries. I won't go into a lot of detail, but I will just say this one thing. If you keep trying, you will make it. You will. And this is exactly what I did. And she did. With 10 months in intensive care, and then 3 years in the spinal unit, she never gave up her will, her tenacity, her courage, her pure fight. Today she is my hero, She has fought the good fight and is such an example of such grit and determination, a person with an attitude of gratefulness and thankfulness. Her life isn't easy, but each day she is truly thankful and grateful to just be here. My other sister is the same, and she made an absolute amazing recovery in time, which left the doctors baffled. But I knew it was through our faith that she had come out the way she did. So after my recovery, which was a couple of years, with many ups and downs, physically, emotionally and mentally, they were really tough times trying to find my feet again, not knowing how to really feel, so much despair, as you can imagine, lots of questions, lots of whys, but knowing one fact, that I would see my beloved mum again. And it was my faith at this time that got me through these very tough days. This was all the beginning of PTSD, anxiety, fear, and lots of other triggers that would plague my life further down the track. I was finally able to get back into the workforce. I never went back to nursing, as I had just seen way too much. I got work, seemed to get on with my life, got married and had 2 beautiful boys, which are the joy of my life, and I'm so blessed to have had them given to me. The next 12 years had good and bad times, but unfortunately after 12 years, my marriage ended. I remarried to my husband now, Roy, who has been my rock and has helped me through the good and bad times. Thanks, hon. That the journey of life brings along. Then in 2003, my world got turned upside down again. My husband was involved in a horrific accident which involved a police chase. They weren't chasing him, which was one good thing. But he was hit by 5 cars. How he survived is only the grace of God again in my life. So for the next 4 years, our lives were turned upside down and inside out. Roy was literally incapacitated for 4 years on so many drugs that turned our family life upside down. I basically had to care for him while still running the home, being a mum and working. They were tough, hard days. I had no option but to fight. I couldn't give up, even though I was scared. All my strength was gone, but I had to fight. And mind you, but there were days when I just didn't want to. But I couldn't give up. But whatever you're going through, and whatever crisis is in our lives, I learnt one of the best gifts, and that is to take each day as it comes. Some days when things are hard, you just get through that day. You can't look at the weeks ahead or think of the challenges that you're facing, as it's just too much. So if tonight you are facing challenges, hard times, fears, you only have to get through today. And tomorrow will take care of itself. It's a burden and a care that we don't need to give to ourselves, because the fears that we build up in our mind may never come. I look back and wonder how we got through those years, but we did. And even though there were many tears, many uncertainties, fears and trials, we did get through. It was really tough, but we never looked back, we always looked forwards. And through those times, the smallest things can turn into such amazing victories. Because when you're going through hardships, you only need a little ray of light to lift up your spirit and give you the confidence that you're going to make it through. I've looked back over my journal of those years, and truly I didn't realise how strong I had to be. And the crazy thing was, I was going through my own fears, especially PTSD. In those 4 years of looking after Roy, I had to do all the driving to places that would just freak me out in the city. This was probably my hardest hardship. As you could imagine, driving was one of my biggest fears. At this time, I hated being on the road. I was petrified, having to drive, but I did it and I survived. And even through all of these years, I still didn't quite get how bad my PTSD was. Probably because I had no option. I had to do what I had to do. So it's a bit different in our household. I like to drive, but so does Roy, as he suffers from PTSD too, so we're a good pair. So we get through our drives with each other's help. Sometimes it's not a good scene, and you probably wouldn't want to be in the car with us. But the best thing is we haven't given up, and we don't let this fear take over our life. We step out in faith and speak out positive affirmations, and it works. Sometimes screaming at Roy, but thank God he is understanding most of the time. It's all about not letting your fear become your enemy. There is still many a time that I don't want to get in the car. Even coming up tonight, I was frightened, I was scared. But I do, and I feel good when I have achieved a victory. So give it a go. With whatever you're facing, even if at first it's not much, eventually you will be surprised where you're going with whatever challenge you're facing. Don't let fear hold you back. And then another hurdle came in my life in 2008 when I was involved in another car accident, where a car ran up my rear end and hit me with such force that their number plate was left embedded in the back of my car. This is when everything from all of my years, way back from 1977, came to a head, and I hadn't really grieved and dealt with losing my mum when I thought I had. And this was where my PTSD all started to make sense. This is when the puzzle started to come together, and it was where I really started to understand who I really was. And this was a really hard time in my life. I finally understood why I did some things, why I thought the way I did, why I acted the way I did. And this was where I learnt to love me for me and to be kind to me. And this is such a big lesson for all of us to learn. No matter how big or how small our crisis is that you're facing, you have to learn to love yourself through it. Finding kindness and compassion, learning to express yourself to others, finding the strength to talk to others, to be there for another, can bring so much healing, even when you're falling apart. Because then all of a sudden, you see that we all have had some hard times we're going through, and how rewarding can it be when all of a sudden, out of your crisis, you can bring healing to someone else. It's an ongoing journey, but one now that you don't have to be scared about. Some days now are still hard for me. I still have many triggers that set me off, especially driving, but I know that I can get through that moment. I still have some fears with self-doubt, but I can say that there is healing and stability when you believe in your own gifts. I still have many days that I cry, but one thing I've learnt through trauma and pain, that you have so much to give to others, to have empathy and compassion, a listening ear. So no matter what you're facing, know that you are a voice to be able to uplift, support and comfort. Even when you think you can't, you have nothing to give, you really have so much to give. So tonight be encouraged that you are well able to face the mountain that is in front of you. That mountain is only as big as you see it. So have faith and know that you can win. You can come through it. It may not always be easy, but when you look back at where you have come, you are the victor, not the victim. Thank you.